Hello, welcome back. Today, I thought of sort of doing a second part to the my funny Valentine's cover of Angelina Jordan's cover of my funny Valentine's Valentine, which she did February 14th as a sort of like a gift for everyone, and wishing everyone, I think, a happy Valentine's, and that's how she does it, right? She speaks through her music, and at least for now, right? And so I just want to continue, do sort of like a second part to it, because the first part I didn't really talk about much about her sound and how she sounded and so on. I was so enthralled with all the information that I was receiving through my eyes, and visually and everything else, and anyway, and even though I knew that it was, how many times can someone say she's fantastic, right? And how her voice is amazing. But I wanted to sort of listen to this again, with you. I hope you don't mind.
My funny Valentine, sweet comic Valentine, you make me smile with my heart.
That's a very chic place that she's at, the type of furniture, the chandeliers, the very, that style. I wonder if that's the style she likes and so on. But her voice is just, just amazing. You could see the growth in her voice in the sense of texture right away from when she was younger. This is a song that requires a lot of texture in the voice, and that's why I think I even when she was younger, and I covered that. Well, I commented on that. That I hope that I'm around and we're all around to see her do this song when she's in her mid-20s or in her 20s, let's say, because it's going to be, I think, something really amazing. And it already is, but she's only 16.
You look so laughable, unphotographable, yet you're my favorite word of art. Is your figure less than Greek? Is your mouth a little weak when you open it to speak? Are you smart?
Wow. I mean, the control in her voice is just amazing, right? But we all know that. And, she's just getting better and better. And, how good can she be, is there a point where she's like how would I put it? She's like a bottle of wine, right? That just gets better with age. If it's prepared well, if it's prepared to be an aged wine, and she is well prepared to become one of those special wines that at some point it reaches its full body and full potential, and it's going to be incredibly an incredible experience, to consume such a wine, in a. So I don't know if that's a good analogy, but anyway, that's what comes to mind, because she's just getting better, and wow,
But don't change your hair from me, and not if you care for me. Stay, little Valentine, stay. Each day is Valentine's Day.
Now this is the type of song that I think the visual aspect is important as well, at least in my mind, because it's nice to be able to see the singer sing the song, because I don't know, there's everything associated with it in the sense of it's a very romantic style song and everything, So when she's in her 20s and watching this, I think it's going to be something really special and really amazing. I think at some point in the future, maybe when she's older, much older, people are just going to be like shocked by the type of performance she's going to give with this particular song. I think, like I said, I picture her doing. I mean, she's already amazing. Imagine, 10 years from now, what she's going to be able to do. And the audience, considering that her audience is older people, a lot of her audience, like myself, and older, we may need some nitroglycerin pills, be handed out in the crowd. But anyway, I'm just joking. But and the chandeliers, I mean, it's very chic,
Is your figure less than Greek? Is your mouth a little weak when you open it to speak? Are you smart? But don't change your hair from me, and not if you care for me. Stay, little Valentine, stay.
Wow. I mean, the power of her voice, right, is just out of this world, right? Look at that face. The power of her voice is just incredible, and she just is able to transport you, to that place of where the song brings you to, and it just I don't know, what an incredible talent,
Each day is Valentine's Day.
amazing, she's just wonderful. Yeah, I'm glad that I watched this again. But again, I mean, who gets tired of watching Angelina perform, or just listening to her? And I mean, this is one of the best gifts, I think, that this world has given us, especially during these hard times and these difficult periods of isolation and so on. And hopefully, there's going to be peace in the world. And this is where, I sort of branch off into something that's a little bit deeper in the sense of love, and my funny Valentine, all the love songs and everything, it's all sweet and so on. But, ultimately, if we don't have a fundamental love that's beyond everything else, that's not selfish in any way, the human species is going to have a hard time to survive itself, because, like when I wrote my book, and I wrote it in the sense of like, I've already like, it takes place, hundreds of years in the future. So I sort of projected already, like, what's going to happen, at least speculatively speaking, because we have three major, in my opinion, three major man-made existential problems. The first is nuclear war. The second is climate change. The third is artificial intelligence. So those are the three things that could, at some point or other, threaten our existence, if they're not already doing so. And these are man-made, so I'm not talking about like meteors or things of that nature, right? And so on. So, and you know, I think to survive those things, the human species has to evolve as quickly as possible from the self-centered human condition that it lives in to one that is based on love, unconditional love that, but it's such a huge jump, right? I mean, you know, like I did a little bit of a video of commentary on the song Imagine, you know, because it talks about, you know, the type of world that we can imagine it to be, and it speaks of like, if no countries, imagine there's no countries, imagine there's no religion, and there's no hell, no heaven, you know, this, you know, if we really look at things in a very profound way, it has so much significance, because we have, with the love that we understand is, it comes from the duality that forms all these divisions in our lives, in the human condition. It begins, and you know, from begins, you can be, you know, it begins from within oneself, you know, divided within oneself, and then divided outside of that. And so we form, you know, families, and suddenly the one family is, you know, divided from another family, right? And so on. One group divided from another group. All these divisions occur when we divide ourselves, you know. And the same goes with countries, municipalities, nations, whatever you want to call it, and then the same thing with the different religions. You know, it's all these things that we create because we don't really understand completely, you know, the idea of love. Because if we did, we wouldn't have all these things, you know, because, you know, it's like the idea of the love of one's country over the love over another, and so on, you know, or love of even a sports team over another sports team, and people get freaked out, or even singers or whatever, you know. You know, instead of just loving everything, you know, and loving everyone in the same way, if we could do that, you know, that would transform the world. But to do that is, it's so difficult. It seems like impossible, but it isn't, you know, because if we really look at things, we have to start from the end. And that's what my book has to do a lot about, the mortality, you know. Because the projection of my book is basically, you know, get to a point in the future where, okay, much of the world has been destroyed in some fashion or another, and there's one civilization that has done well because they sort of like planned, and they escaped the whole scene of what happens in the world, and they're technologically advanced, and they made it so far, technologically speaking, that they are ready to let go, shed their bodies, and actually go to a virtual heaven, you know, a heaven of their own making, in the sense of like a metaverse, you know, like you're hearing about with Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg is trying to do, except that's from just using avatars. But imagine you could transform, or you could transcend that, or transport your consciousness into an avatar, and that would give you sort of a virtual immortality. But there's but that doesn't resolve the issue, and the issue, and the thing is that without the gift of being mortal, I don't think we can achieve enlightenment, because to arrive at enlightenment, you have to arrive at what it means to who one is, okay? And one way of doing that is to know what it means to die. What is mortality? What happens, in the sense of what really is it? And that's the scariest thing. That's where fear comes in, And because I spoke about the emotion of greed and how that transforms the world into what it is, and the same thing with fear. Fear, does so much in the sense of how the world is. We're scared, so we fight. You can go back to even belief systems, right? That are based on fear. You go back to being a caveman, right? If you think about it, you're a caveman. Okay, so you don't really know much, right? We don't know anything. I'm a caveman, so I go and I go outside, and it's sunny and it's nice. So it's a great thing, right? It's warm. I could see and hunt and gather and so on, right? And then it gets dark, because night is coming and whatever. It gets dark, and all of a sudden, it's scary. You can't see where the other animals that are ready to attack you, and so on and so on. So obviously, you prefer the daylight, and you start worshiping the daylight, and because you start thinking, oh my God, the daylight is going away. You don't know where it's going. You don't know how it works. You don't know where the idea of the sun, how that works. You're just speculating on what it means, and you start forming these ideas of love of the sun, and start worshiping the sun, because the dark is pretty nasty. It could be pretty nasty at night. It's cold and everything else. So and you start and the caveman starts developing. Obviously, I start developing that idea that hey, the sun is a god, and it's based on fear, because fear that if I don't worship it, maybe it won't come back the next day, because I don't have any knowledge of how how that works. I'm just seeing this pattern, right? And then imagine somebody dies and somebody doesn't move, and you go, what happened to that person? And then there's this fear of what does that mean, right? To die. And then what happens is the brain, in order to accept that, to manage that, it starts fabricating a whole bunch of ideas of what it means and what happens after, and it starts developing ideas and belief systems that will comfort the mind, because it has that empty space of what doesn't know what it is. So what it doesn't know, it will tend to speculate on that through some kind of belief system, And there's a whole bunch of different belief systems on what happens, because it's the hardest thing to do is confront what if the mortality means that you're basically gone. The whoever I am no longer will exist forever and ever, Now that is quite could be quite a depressing idea, and scary too, because the thing that we're most attached to is ourselves, that little voice in our mind, right? That little voice that's talking right now to you. And so that fear of losing that forever and ever, sort of start thinking, so what's it all about? What am I doing? What's this thing all about? And so on. And and what happens is basically fear takes over, and people don't want to really look at what that means, because, like I said, it is the scariest thing, because it's always scary to let go of attachments, and but there's a certain thing that happens when someone comes to terms with that idea that maybe there is nothing after, and that in the sense of like who I am ends when my brain ends, because my consciousness is in my brain, my own personal consciousness, and that ends. But the global human consciousness continues as long as the human consciousness continues. So my voice in there in that human consciousness is like an echo, continues like maybe a little bit of an echo, and we're all part of that, that echo system, and if we can realize that we're all actually all part of that same human echo, the human condition and human consciousness, we are no different. And we what we do to another is like basically doing that to ourselves. So if we hurt someone, we're hurting ourselves in actuality. And that's where the only thing that really remains, that it really exists, that is permanent, is something that is beyond our human consciousness. And that's where, to find that out, you have to be outside of the human consciousness, and the only time we're outside of that is when we're no longer there. Right? The whole, when you listen to people speaking about, enlightenment or meditation or whatever, they're talking about, basically stopping our minds, to think, which is the idea is to stop who we are, and once you remove that, maybe there's something else, and that's the exploration that people, I think, have to go through in order to discover something that may be there or may not be there, and that's what my book is about. It's an allegory of that travel through the labyrinth, of questions and answers and questions, and just basically a lot of questioning of what's going on, and then trying to answer those questions, and to the point of what if there is a point to an end, and what it means, and what it could provide, because really there's something about the idea of a complete end to everything that I am, that also is not only scary, but it's also liberating as well, because you come to this realization, and a lot of people that I think are think that way, or have these ideas in the sense of mortality, they come to this realization, that hey, the only thing that actually means anything is love. Not love in a romantic sense. It's a kind of attachment, because that's just a fleeting thing, because sooner or later you're going to be detached in one form or another. But a love that has no attachment, a love that comes from within, not from without, because people have this impression, this idea through these love songs and everything, through that's where the love songs come into the picture as well, that it's a mutual thing. You love someone loves you back, and whatever, but that's only like I said, that's part of the duality of life. But there's a love that's beyond that, and that emerges from within once you see things for what they are. And being able to see that we are mortal, and that at some point we end, and that realization that the only thing really worthwhile is to love everyone, because what difference does it make? Hate and all the other things are insignificant, but love is eternal. And yeah, so if you become that which is eternal, in a sense, not you in the sense of personal, but that whole state of being, which is a state where I'm not there, me. There's no me. There's no I. There's no person. It's just the only thing left. The only thing that remains, let's say, is the truth, and the truth being what it is that you find when everything else no longer matters, and and the only thing that provides that possibility in the sense of an understanding is our mortality. Because if I live forever, I would never ask such a question, or at least not profoundly, maybe superficially, but not profoundly, in the same way that a young person asks that question that's never really encountered it. That's most young people that are not affected by health or whatever, they think they're going to live forever, so it's not a question that comes to mind, generally speaking, except for people that are empathic, such as Angelina Jordan, for example. She's already experienced mortality around her from her grandparents and so on, in which I think she's learned a lot. I believe, I guess I'm just guessing. The same thing with Aurora. I think that she's dealt with that as well. And it brings a certain level of enlightenment, because really, what's the use of arguing? What's the use of being negative in the sense of towards anyone, or hurting anyone, or hurting anything, or doing something that's not beneficial to others? There is absolutely no use, because that ends. And whatever you got out of that, a person gets out of doing something that's not out of unconditional love, is meaningless at the end. The only thing meaningful is the love you give. That's about it. That's about it for now, anyway. I hope that made some sense. Anyway, thank you very much for your support, and thank you for listening. Have a great day. Stay safe, stay sound.